Hi guys. So today, cell membrane, which is 3-3, so Unit 3, Section 3. This is also found in Chapter 7 in the book, Section 3. So Chapter 7, Section 3, if you wanted to look in the book to kind of help you out. So we're going to talk about the cell membrane in two parts today, just basic structure in one part and then function in another part. So let's start with the structure. So the cell membrane has lots of different names depending on who you ask. So let's start with one of the first ones, or at least how we're used to it, is the cell membrane. It's also referred to as the plasma membrane. It's also referred to as the phospholipid bilayer, and we'll get into why that is in just a minute. The cell membrane has many jobs other than just holding a cell together. One of the first jobs that it has is to isolate the cytoplasm from the external environment, because we don't want what's inside the cell mingling with what's outside of the cell. We want to keep them separate from each other. So the cytoplasm helps prevent any sort of exchange of materials that the cell doesn't want. The second thing that the cell membrane can do is to regulate the exchange of substances, which is why we say that the cell membrane is semi-permeable. Semi means halfway. Permeable means things can go through. So semi-permeable means some things can go through, but not all things. The third thing that the cell membrane can do is to communicate with other cells. Your body has a way of knowing when there's a cell in it that doesn't belong to it, like a bacterial cell or a virus. And so if your body has a constant checking system to say, okay, you're my cell, you're not, then that helps to keep us healthy. But it's also bad if you get a transplant of some sort. Say you get a new kidney, well then your body says, hey, that's not my cell, and will start to destroy and basically kill the new organ, which is why you have to take certain medications called anti-rejection drugs to make sure that your body doesn't try to eat the new organ that you've received. And the last one that your cell membrane does is just for identification. So your body can say, you're a blood cell, you're a neuron, you're a fat cell, whatever. And so it kind of helps them to say what type of cell that they are. Okay. If we look at the structure of a cell membrane, we see that it's made out of a bilayer, two layers of phospholipids. Now, if you remember, a phospholipid is the glycerol ping pong ball plus two little tails like this, which were the fatty acids. So the glycerol head, this guy right there, is hydrophilic, which means he likes water, and which is good because the outside of the cell is pretty much nothing but water. And then we have the fatty acid tails right here, which are hydrophobic, which means they do not like water, which is good because this layer, let me pick a different color, this layer inside of here repels water. So that's how the inside and the outside of the cell tend to remain separate from each other, because the inside of the cell is water as well, the outside is water, but we have this nice waterproof lining right in here. Now the way that they're arranged, because of we have polar, non-polar, I can't put another polar right next to it. So what I do is I arrange it to where the two non-polar portions butt up next to each other and make a little non-polar sandwich. And then I got my polars on the outside here. He's smiling, he's just upside down. And then I basically make a sandwich where no water can get through. And that becomes very, very important later on in dealing with the transport of materials throughout the cell. Now, the cell membrane is also referred to as a fluid-mosaic model. What that means is when you look at the surface of all these phospholipids here, and they just look like ping pong balls, if I were to color this one purple, and this one yellow, and this one pink, and so on, in the non-fluid mosaic model, all these guys are stuck. Purple is stuck there, yellow stuck there, pink is stuck there. But what actually ends up happening in the fluid mosaic model is that these guys are fluid. This guy can go in and out. He can cruise wherever he wants, and he can end up over here if he wanted to. The yellow guy, he can cruise and end up over here, and then maybe like that. And the purple guy can just kind of go around over here and end up over here if he wanted to. So all these phospholipids have the ability to glide around each other. Another way of looking at it is imagine that these are people in a very crowded pool. Okay, so here's a person, here's a person, here's a person, and so on. So, oh, my cat fell down. I was trying to keep my cat up here to see if you guys would notice it. So all these people aren't stuck there. This guy can cruise through the crowd and end up over here if he wanted to. This guy can cruise over here and so on. So the fluid mosaic model just means that these phospholipids are fluid around each other and have the ability to migrate and move past each other if need be. So if each one of these were a different color, every single time I looked at it, I would have a new pattern, a new picture, or a new mosaic on the surface of it. Okay. Now, unfortunately, our cell membrane is not just phospholipids. There's definitely way more to it. So there's lots of proteins that are found. So here you can see each of the little phospholipids. Okay, so the top, what's that? Glycerol head. This part right there, fatty acid tails. Okay, and then there's another glycerol right there. So I've got a section of no water. No water is allowed in there. Okay, no water, no water, no water. Okay, so sometimes materials need help getting from one side to the other side of the cell, and they do so by going through proteins. This little purple guy right there, that is a protein, which is what? A chain of amino acids. You are correct. Okay, so let's see. There's lots of different types of proteins depending on how they act, what they move through them, what do they look like. So we're going to start with the first one, which is called a channel protein. A channel protein essentially does what it sounds like. It forms a channel for something to go through. And so the solute, remember the solute is the thing that gets dissolved in making a water mixture. And so the solute, and this could be glucose, it could be all sorts of different things, but the protein is just like a donut. And so as you imagine a donut looking straight down on it has a hole in the middle, things can pass through it. And so these little guys can go right through the donut out to the other side. So that's what we call a channel protein. Okay, the next type of protein is called a carrier protein. And he looks a little different in his shape. He's still kind of round, he's still a protein. But now what happens is that they have a special little catch in the middle of them that is made specifically for that particular guy. Now if a guy shaped like this comes along, he won't fit. So that prevents unwanted materials from going into the cell. So I've got these little molecules and they want to go into the other side. But it's closed down here. So what happens is that he'll go in, and once he fits in there, that signals to the protein, okay, time to change shape, and he closes up here, but that makes him open up here, and he spits out the little solute guy right over here. And then when he's done, he goes back to this side, waiting for the next guy to come through. So the definition, binding site on a protein, so that would be this little area right here, grabs certain molecules and pulls them into the cell. That's how our muscles work, by grabbing sodium and potassium and making it go in and out of our muscle cells very rapidly. Okay, third type we have are called receptor proteins. When you recept something, you're taking in information. And so what happens, let's find him, here he is, it's this guy right here. The receptor protein, he also has a binding site, you can see right here, for someone to sit in there. And once that something sits in there, well, that signals, okay, it's time to start some chemical reactions. So a receptor protein doesn't really spit anything out to the other side, but it's like turning a key. That once, like turning the key in your car, starts the car. Well, this guy's the key, and once he sits in his seat, that starts off some other cell processes, starts the car of your cell. So again, same kind of idea. If something shaped like this wants to come sit in there, it's not going to work. So that's not going to start the car. So the only thing that will start the car is the thing that looks like it should actually fit inside of there. So we call those receptor proteins. So they don't send anything through, but they do start certain chemical reactions. Okay, another one we've got cell recognition proteins. And I've got these two on the same side of each other. So cell recognition proteins, like this guy here, they have little tags sticking out of them, and you can kind of think of them as name tags. And so this is what other cells of your body, like white blood cells, they take a look at this and go, oh, hey, that's my guy. I won't eat you today. And so this is kind of like your name tag saying, I belong to you, don't harm me. And then we have enzymatic proteins like this guy right here, and what he does is he carries out metabolic reactions. And so he is basically an enzyme. He's just an enzyme that's stuck in the phospholipid bilayer. So he's an enzyme just like all the other enzymes that we talked about, but the main difference is that he's embedded in the cell membrane. Alright, let's see. Other things that we can find inside of the structure. Hold on. There we go. Okay, one of them is called a glycoprotein. Now, just if you take a look at the word, it tells you everything you need to know. Glyco sounds like glucose. Protein sounds like protein. So, since the big blue blobs in here are proteins, just picture that it's a protein with glucose attached. So if I go digging in there, let's see, there's one. Right there. So you can only see half of him. You can only see this top half sticking out, but there he is right there. And see this little chain sticking off of him? Okay, well those are glucoses. What are glucoses? But carbohydrates. So this is a glycoprotein because he's got glucoses, a chain of glucoses sticking out of his protein. Okay, simple. So glycoprotein, glucose chain hanging on to a protein. The next one we have glyco, okay, glucose, lipid, oh, lipid. So it's a lipid with glucose attached. So let's go find that guy. Integral, no, there he is. Okay, so now there's the bottom half, there's the top half. So if we look at him, he looks like a phospholipid, which is the lipid portion, but he's got a big old chain of glucose stuck to his head too. So it's just a lipid, a phospholipid with a chain of glucose. So all these little green guys that are kind of poking their head up like that, those are all glycolipids. And then we also have cholesterol. Now, too much cholesterol is bad. A little bit's good. Why? Because cholesterol, where is he? This yellow thing right there, they actually help to keep the tails from tangling up. And that would cause rigidity in the cell and cause your cells to fall apart. So by having these cholesterol molecules in there, it just kind of helps to keep everything straight and not get all tangled up like that. Okay? Let's look at the next one. That was it. Let me make sure. Yes, that's it. Okay? So, on this one, you don't need to worry about this guy. Alpha helix protein, so this little wormy dude, don't worry about him. So just know the difference between glycoproteins and glycolipids and cholesterols, which are found in here. You need to know the 5 different types of proteins that can be found inside of the cell membrane. And so like if I gave you a drawing of one or told you what it did, you should be able to figure that out. And let's see, what else should you be able to do? Be able to draw and label a phospholipid, and then maybe even draw a basic phospholipid bilayer, just at least with one row. You don't need all these rows deep. Okay, and I think some of the jobs, you should be able to tell me what he does, and all these different things. There's another one on there. We also call it a semi-permeable, I swear I can write better than this, membrane. It's the pen, it's got lag, and so it's not picking up the movements nice and smooth. Okay, so that is it. So cell membrane, and next we'll take a look at what the cell membrane actually does, especially in terms of number 2, regulating materials as they go by. So you guys all have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you tomorrow when we make and eat our cakes. Yum, 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 yum.